Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, Miss Lady Ree, and today I am going to play in makeup. Now, it's a look I've done before, except I'm not gonna do the glitter. It's my son and husband's birthday weekend, and I'm going to take lunch to my son. So I figured I'd do a story time and tell you about my son's heart surgery that happened 2 years ago. So it's gonna be an orange and black since it's October. The color is orange and black, smoky eye. Nothing crazy. He wants McDonald's, so that's what I'm gonna do. Nothing on my face. Also, I know you guys have been seeing all these breakouts on my face. I have decided to try Curology. I've sent in my pictures. I talked with the skin doctor, and yeah, it said my treatment will be here in a week, and you get a 30-day supply. So we'll see what happens after a month of using my formula, Curology, that is made for specifically me. Prime my face. I'm going to use Maybelline Master Prime Studio to prime my face today. I love this primer because it feels so smooth, like silk. It doesn't really have a smell. So I'll be using L'Oreal's Dip Brow Gel in the color 173. Okay, so story time. All right, my son, name is Jordan. He was born October 12th, 2010. I tried to have him on 10-10-10. It wasn't happening. Anyways, I had him by C-section at like 11 something. Actually, Shay was born at 11 something in the morning. He was born at 7 something. Because they took me back in the room at like 6-ish. You know, when you're the first surgery, they take you back at 6. And I'm pretty sure he was out of me by 7 something, maybe 7:30. And then I got my tubes tied. Yes. No more babies. Anyways, he was born with a heart murmur. And you know how you take your kids for checkups like every year? I'd always get him, and we were in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'd always get him, that's where I was stationed when I was active duty, for those of y'all who don't know me. But anyway, you always get the checkups for your children, and they would always tell me that his heart murmur, the hole was going to close, like it was small, and it would close. But me being the mom that I am, those who know me know I pay attention to probably too much. Like, wherever I live, because I'm a stay-at-home mom and all I do is schooling and used to be a cop, I read license plates. Like, I pay attention to the arguments between people. I notice everything. And with my son, the older he got, the more I noticed whenever he'd go run outside and play, his cheeks would get really, really red. And he's like my complexion. So for his cheeks to be red like that, that told me he wasn't getting enough oxygen. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show Malcolm in the Middle, but you know that boy who talks and he was like, okay, and like that? My son would talk like that, not as bad as him, but that further let me know he wasn't getting enough oxygen. And he was hospitalized when he was 6 months old, and again at, it's my air freshener, again at 9 months old for RSV, respiratory I'm not even gonna sit here and act like I know. That's why it's called RSV. I'm sitting here trying to think of what it is. But anyway, and he had to be on an oxygen tank for, I want to say 30 days after he was out of the hospital. So yeah, having a car seat and a 6-month-old with an oxygen tank, it's just a lot to carry. So we were in the house a lot and working security forces, 16-hour shifts with 2 children. If I didn't have the help of my family, I probably would have lost my mind a long time ago. I mean, I've lost my mind, but y'all know what I mean. Anyways, so the older he got, the more I noticed that if he was getting oxygen, his cheeks wouldn't get red and he wouldn't talk the way he talked. So we moved to England and we're at his 6-year checkup, fast forward. And while we're there, I tell the doctor, like I tell all the doctors, like, hey, at this point, my son, not only could you, if you put your ear up to his chest, you could hear his heart murmur. If you put your hand on his chest, you could feel like the so anybody who's met him and felt it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyways, we go to the doctor's appointment and I'm telling the doctor everything I tell all the other doctors before. So she listens to it and she was like, you know what? Let's get a second opinion. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Like, to me, it was somebody is finally listening to you. Thank God. The second opinion is in London, which is like 2 hours away from where we were. And we get down to London. I want to say, it was in December because, you know, well, those of you who are military know, it takes a while for referrals to go through, especially with dependents. So, it was sometime in December before Christmas. And they did the echo and an EKG. And the doctor was like, I think he's fine because he's strong as an ox. But he too wanted to get a second opinion. So he calls his friend. I lied. Rewind. We went to Cambridge, which is 45 minutes away. London is 2 hours away. Cambridge is where we met the first doctor who did the echo and the EKG, and he wanted to talk to Dr. Yates, who is the doctor in London, to get a second opinion. So as he's calling him, he requests that, he was like, hey, this may sound weird, but your son has a perfect murmur. And I was like, a perfect murmur? He was like, to study for other nurses who may never come across this. If they can listen to it, they would know what to look and listen for. If you wouldn't mind him being studied in a conference. They had a conference in London for the 25th through the 28th, which was around the same time my church was having a conference. And I was like, well, we're already going to be at a conference in this location. And I was like, it's up to Jordan, you know, it's his body. If he wants to have nurses and people, you know, listen, that's up to him. You know, like, I'll let him make that choice. And he was like, okay. So while he was waiting on the doctor to call back from looking, he said, I have some nurses here in training. Do you mind if they all have a listen? It was like 30 to 40 nurses, I'm not joking you, that were there in training. And because of how special my son's murmur was, he wanted all of them to hear it. So I said, if you ask Jordan and he's good with it, I'm good with it. So he asked Jordan, and of course most of the nurses were hot chicks, they with the British or Irish or Scottish accent. So he was all for them listening to his heart. And one by one, they each felt it and listened to it as we waited for the call from Dr. Yates. So We get the call from Dr. Yates, and he tells us that he wants to do surgery as soon as possible. And I'm like, wait, how we go from my son is strong, he might not need surgery, to you want to operate as soon as possible? This doctor wanted to operate so fast. I think we got the operation date December 23rd, which was 2 days before Christmas. That's why, and people who know me, I remember dates and numbers like it's just a thing. I feel like numbers talk to me, but that's another story. Anyways, so we get the date December 23rd that they want to operate January 25th, which is crazy, right? Because my dad's birthday is January 24th, so it was the day after my dad's 55th birthday. See all these numbers? Anyways, those will probably be numbers I play on the roulette table when we go to New Mexico's casino. But that's another story. I don't know if I'm going to vlog that trip. I know I'm going to do makeup videos, but probably not vlog. We'll see. I think I just messed up my eyebrow. We fast forward to January, and we went up to London, because I say we, my mom and dad were also in England. They still are. And we go up to celebrate my dad's birthday, and one of our friends, I don't know if she wants to be named or not, so I'm not going to name her. Her and her daughter came up there with us, and we celebrated my dad's 55th birthday. We went to TGI Fridays. For those of you who don't know, there's not too many American restaurants on base, but if you go like to London or whatever, there's more Americanized restaurants. So we went to TGI Fridays for Pops' birthday, and we're all singing happy birthday to him. And Jordan, before his surgery, he wanted to cut his dreads. Mind you, my son had never had a haircut until he was 6 years old. He had dreads like, there's a picture. That's what he looked like with his dreads. Now, he cut his hair, and he said he wanted to change. And I think it was just because of what he was going through, or what he was about to go through. He wanted something different. I do think some kids at the school were bothering him, but we were the only dreadheads at that time in England. There are a whole lot now. On base, not off base. There's plenty off base. But it's surgery day. Mind you, I'm in school for my bachelor's at this time, and I was taking a film class, and everybody was like, oh, stop taking classes, focus. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to focus, so at least I could distract myself with the schoolwork. So we get to the hospital. They're checking his blood, drawing some blood just in case they have to do a blood transfusion, which they did the day before as well. The regular checkups, the insurance stuff, and then Dr. Yates comes in. He's talking to Jordan. I'm taking pictures, trying to be distracted, but I'm listening. And then he starts drawing where he's gonna, do his stuff. And my dad gets like emotional, and he's like, I gotta leave the room. And he leaves, and I'm there with Jordan while he's getting drawn on. And the doctor was like, do you want to be wheelchaired to the back, or do you want someone to carry you? And I just knew he was gonna pick mommy, because I'm mommy. Nope, he wanted daddy to carry him. So TC carries him to the room. Now, the doctor warns us, since we were using gas, that they were going to put the gas on his face, and he would try to fight. And that even though he tries to fight, we still need to hold him down and let the medicine take his course. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever seen their child go under. I think this was the worst part of the day for me. One of the worst. He starts fighting, and he's trying to pull away because he could feel himself going to sleep, and we have to hold the mask, and my husband is holding him, and then his eyes just roll in the back of his head, and he just goes limp. Try not to cry because I'm doing makeup. I lost it. Like, I started crying because that's my baby. And this is one of the things that made me upset. Like, I snapped out of that crying mode. She was like, the nurse, okay, say your goodbyes. I was like, oh no, boo boo, it's not goodbye, it's see you later. Jordan, even though he was asleep, TC's putting him on the table, I'm rubbing his head. I was like, mommy loves you, and I'll be there when you wake up, right? And me and my husband grab hands. He's crying, I'm crying, and we're holding each other's hand on the elevator going back up to the waiting room. We get in the waiting room, and I see my dad. My dad's holding my son's, my homie, I don't know if he wants his name mentioned, so I'm not going to mention it, gave my son a Minion Build-A-Bear type thing, and he had a doctor suit on, and my dad was holding him, and I was like, Dad, my baby, and I just went into my dad's arms crying like, my baby, he's going under right now, open heart surgery, I'm losing it. And my dad held me while my husband went to the bathroom and he got himself together. It was very emotional. My mom had my daughter. She took her to go get some breakfast so she didn't see her mom and dad crying like some babies. 8 hours later, 8 hours later, they come back and say that everything went well. The machine is pumping the blood back, into his heart. What they did was the hole was located on his ventricle valve because of VSD or VDS closure, and they placed this, can't think of what it's called, but over the valve and let his heart heal over it. And they did that. What's crazy is the first day after surgery, okay, let me go back. They tell us that everything went well and that they'll be bringing him to ICU and we'll be able to see him up there. I go up there, he still has the tube down his throat, his eyes are closed, and the lady's like, the same lady that told me to say goodbye, she's like, it's gonna be a while before he wakes up. I still want to see my son, so I was like, anything she said, I wasn't having it. So I was like, Jordan, it's mommy. I'm right here. I need you to wake up. He started opening his eyes, but he couldn't talk, because the tube was down his throat still. They had the IV in his neck and his arm. It was just a lot. And I'm like, mommy's here. Here's a picture of him with his sister by his side. And I'm like, mommy's here, I need you to open them eyes, boy. I love you. You did so well. It's over. Anyway, they move him to this next room. In this next room, there's 6 patients in a room. Mind you, this London hospital is like the #1 for pediatric heart surgery. So I think that was only God that sent us to be in England so my son could have that surgery, because all the other doctors said it was closing, but yet it was growing as he grew. So, long story short, I'm messing this all up. They get him to this next room, and it's 6 people in there. There was one baby in there, and I felt so bad. This baby couldn't have been no more than 2 weeks old. Had the same surgery as Jordan. 2 weeks old. And what I didn't understand is the baby's parents were like in the waiting room, not in the room with the baby. So I didn't get that. I was trying to be with my son any way I could, but it is a newborn, so what really could you do with a newborn? I don't know. I'm just different. And they were Asian, so I don't know. It puzzled me. But anyway, on this first night, no parent is allowed to stay with the child. Yeah, I know. Once visiting hours are over, everyone has to go home on the first night. Talk about devastated. So I think an hour after visiting hours were over, that's when I decided, okay, I'll go to my hotel, which was like down the street from the hospital. But I knew I wasn't going to be able to get any sleep because my son is in a hospital that I can't be at, and I didn't understand why. He just had open heart surgery. I digress. The ride home in the taxi, or not home, but the ride to the hotel, I cried. I mean, I was sitting there just holding my purse in my lap, boo-hoo, crying. And I'm like, what if he needs me? What if I'm not there if he wakes up in the middle of the night? Because granted, he was on a lot of morphine and some other medications. And I'm like, what if he needs me? What if he wakes up in the middle of the night and he calls on me and I'm not there? Now it looks like I'm this mom that wasn't there for my son at the time that he needed me the most. That's how I was looking at it. That's what I was telling myself in my brain. So, and I'm bipolar. So a bipolar mind thinking like that, it just was not good for me. But I knew it was something my son needed. So I'm trying to, my husband's trying to get me to, like, babe, as soon as there's visiting hours, you can go. Because I told everybody, hey, I'm not going to go to sleep because there's no way I can sleep. As a mom, how can I sleep knowing my son's in the hospital after he just had surgery? Like, what if I go to sleep and they call me because they have to operate again, or who knows? Just what if? And so we got to the hotel. I logged onto my computer and logged on to school and did my entire week of assignments until it was like, I want to say 5:30, and then I hopped in the shower. And after I got out the shower, I called a taxi, told my husband that I was headed to the hospital, told my mom and dad I would see them later at the hospital, and went to the hospital because at 6 o'clock that meant it was visiting time. And so if that means I can visit my son, I'm going to be there as soon as the doors open. Now, granted, I did feel good because I wasn't the only mom there at 6 o'clock. The newborn's parents were there as well. But I get in there and I see Jordan, and he has such an angry face. Like, those of you who know him, you know his angry face. But those of you who don't, he's very expressive. Let's say that. And he wasn't happy. And I thought he wasn't happy with me, because I wasn't there. And I was like, is everything okay? Are you all right? Did they, do you need something? He says, they hurt me. And you know me, I'm instantly in mom mode. Who hurt you? And he points across the room to the nurse. I'm like, the nurse hurt you? How she hurt you? Then he points at his private parts. And I'm like, you know me, at first I'm confused. I'm like, all right, how can a nurse hurt a child's private part? It wasn't registering. So, me being the mom and I am, excuse me, my son's saying, yada, yada, yada. What's that about? She goes, we had to remove his catheter. I was like, oh, yeah, son, I do know what that feels like. And yes, that is gonna hurt, and there's nothing mommy can do about it. I was like, but that's a good sign. That means you should be able to get up and go to the bathroom. Mind you, he still has the tubes in his, he still had these tubes in his lungs, but they've removed the IV out of his neck, the catheter, and the IV that was in his arm. So once they removed that, I was like, all right, we're headed in the process of him getting ready to go home. They let me know that, you know, they give the kids the option to press this button for their medication, right? And they were like, your son pressed the button 92 times. I was like, 92 times for some morphine? Oh my God. She was like, now granted, the medication only gets dosed out if it's time for another dose, but this shows us over the days how many times they press the button for their medication. And I was like, oh, okay. So she was like, so we have 92 today, but we'll see how it is tomorrow. I'm like, okay. Then Jordan wasn't eating or drinking. He didn't want to eat or drink nothing. He got into this like depressed mode, like almost like he was hopeless. There was no light behind his eyes. The kids in the room, the other kids were, one spoke French. It was a African American boy who spoke French. It was a Caucasian boy who spoke Portuguese, and the newborn baby. And then there was a little, I want to say she was Indian girl that was in there as well, but she was only in there for like an hour. Then they kept saying her temperature was spiking, and that I heard that there was fluid in her lungs, and then they pushed her out of the room and she never came back. I just prayed that she was in a different room recovering, because yeah, she never came back to that room. But yeah, he was real sad. And this was around the time our bishop had came to London to pick up somebody for the event that I thought I was going to be at, the conference. And so because we needed a car and Jordan had to stay another day, my parents got picked up by Bishop. And while he was there, Bishop prayed for my son, because he saw how it was like he was depressed. He saw how sad he was, and he just prayed for Jordan. And I swear, 2 minutes after he prayed for Jordan, it was like Jordan did a 180, complete turnaround. Not complete turnaround, like not a 360, but a 180 from where he was headed. He had only pressed the morphine button 20 times the next day. And I mean, just overall better, happier. Now, he was still mad he was at the hospital, because he said this little boy had like a tube from his heart, but he said that little boy would be crying and screaming all night and he wouldn't get much sleep. So that's why he was irritated and agitated and couldn't wait till he got his own room. So he's doing better. Then the following day, he only pressed it like 9 times from 20. So it went from 92 to 20 to 9. And his fever had finally went down, and he was drinking juice. He still wasn't eating, but he was drinking juice, and he was getting out of the bed on his own. Then he started walking around the hospital, and they gave him his own room. Even with my son having his own room, they would only let one parent visit. So me and my husband had to play the sneak game of one of us leave out when they did their checks and then come back, because I wasn't paying for no hotel. It wasn't happening. Anyways, so then it's time for us to check out. Jordan's done his rounds of walking. He's got the tubes taken out of his lungs. He really took it like a G. Like, he never really cried, even when like he had to sit up for the first time, because I've had a C-section, so I know what it's like to have to sit up and stand up. I don't know what it's like to have your breastbone broken and then have to sit up. But he sat up the next day, and then he was walking. I want to say he was walking later the next day after like 12 hours. It could have been the following day. I'd have to watch the videos. And yeah, he was a G. A lot of the nurses called him their tough guy, because even when they removed the tubes, they gave him a little bit of laughing gas, and they just removed it. Like, and he sat there and watched them take these tubes out of his chest like a G. I watched too because I couldn't believe this was happening. I'm that mom. I even asked if I could watch the surgery. They told me no. But I was like, I just want to make sure y'all doing your job right. Because I watched it on YouTube, what was going to happen. And believe it or not, my son watched it with me because he wanted to know what the doctors were going to do to him. I'm just weird like that. But we get to go home. Now, this is the part that it was like weird having to go home because we had to catch a train to where our car was parked. For those of you who are in England and understand how far London is from parking to where you have to drive back to the base. So yeah, we had to catch a train, and anyone who's ever been on the train know it's a lot of people, especially in London. So I had to create this like barricade with my arms around my son because people were like running into him, bumping into who's looking for a 6-year-old who just had open heart surgery in the subway train thing area. Who's doing that? Nobody. Who knows he's had surgery? None of them. So it's not their responsibility to watch out for my child. It was mine. So that was the hardest, like keeping him protected, making sure nobody bumped him. And then when we were on the train, making sure he was seated in a way that he wouldn't get bumped or the bumps wouldn't mess with him, because just had surgery and he still got stitches and he's sore. It was a journey. I guess the next hardest part would have been once we were home. He couldn't go back to school for like 3 weeks, right? He couldn't do physical activity for 6 weeks, but he couldn't go back to school for 3. His school did this lovely banner for him that they said to get well soon, and they sent it home with some homework and things for him to work on. And I really loved his kindergarten teacher because, yes, kindergarten, his birthday's late, so he started late. But they took really good care of him. Even after Jordan was cleared, well, let's back up. The 3 weeks of keeping a 6-year-old boy still is extremely hard. So power to anyone who has children and after surgery, you keep them chill and calm. His temp only went up once, and the doctors did tell him not to take baths because he could, the pressure could mess with his breastbone, right? This guy didn't listen. And one day he goes to take a bath. I told him, if you take a bath, make sure the water stays underneath your scar. Even after we got the stitches taken out. He fills the bathtub up because he wants to feel like he's swimming. And, you know, I'm that mom. I don't leave my children, even if they're 6, they're not going to be in the tub by themselves. Excuse me. He was in the tub by himself, but I'm going to be checking. And I went in there to check on him, and he said he wasn't feeling well. So I soaped him up, helped him get out. And once he got out, he was like, Mom, I got a headache. My head hurts. My chest hurts. The pressure from the water being on his chest, like right after surgery. Thought we was going to have to go to the emergency room. I called the doctor and told him what happened. And the doctor was like, just give him some Tylenol or Motrin to help with the headache, and he should be fine. Which I did, and he did. Believe it or not, my son has not taken a bath since that day. Now he showers. Anyways, he, fast forward, he's going to school. And this is why I say I loved his teacher so much, because she, even after he was cleared, after his 6 weeks, he's cleared to do everything because the surgery went well. We had a 6 week follow-up. And he said he's cleared to do physical activity, work out, anything. I was like, well, they're doing gymnastics in PE where he can do flips and stuff. Are you sure? And the guy was like, yeah, he's completely cleared, 100% good to go. So I'm like, all right, I let his teacher know. So it was parent-teacher conference, and Jordan's like, Mom, can you please tell my teacher to let me participate in PE? And I was like, she's not letting you participate? And he's like, no, she won't let me. And I'm like, why not? And so she was like, I'm very fearful that, something may happen to him. Somebody may bump him, and this and that. I was like, oh, I really appreciate that. But he's cleared to, do that. So I don't need you to baby him. He can do what everybody else can do. And she was like, I just want to protect him. And it just made me love her even more because she had my baby's best interest at heart. And I appreciate that. Not all teachers are like that. So when you come across teachers like that, treat them nicely. First grade. What did he have for kindergarten? Oh, I'm lying. He had her for kindergarten. He had her husband for first grade the following year. But yeah, she was a dope teacher. Very dope. But it has been, this January, it'll be 3 years since he's had the surgery. He's completely healed. He has some scars from the tubes and the thing, but when he had his confident issue about his scars, I talked to him about Iron Man, the Flash, and any superhero who wears something on their chest. And I let him know that now he's mommy's superhero because the scar is where he can get his power from. Because, it's connected with the heart. The Iron Man is the one that really helped. Because, Iron Man has this on his chest, and it's to stop things from going to his heart. You have something to help things flow through your heart properly. I was like, what makes you my superhero? He loved it. And then after that, he wasn't ashamed to show anybody, or tell anybody for that matter, that he's had surgery. Now, when we just had his checkup, his 9-year checkup, since he's about to be 9, the doctor did not even know that Jordan had heart surgery. That's how I knew he didn't read the paper. He didn't even know Jordan had heart surgery until he had to lift up his shirt and listen. And he was like, oh, there was a surgery? And I was like, yeah, I wrote it on the paper. My son had heart surgery. And then he asked those questions, which is probably why it's on my heart. I've never done a story time with you guys while I've gotten ready. I don't know if this is something that you guys want me. I guess if the story is interesting, huh? But if it's not, but yeah, that's my brave man. My daughter hasn't had to have any surgeries, thank God, nor has she been hospitalized. So that's good. But yeah, the look I'm doing is like a simple smoky eye, but just with, black and orange since it's Halloween. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video and my story time. If you like this type of story time, let me know down in the comments, and I will do more story time versus, I figured since you already know how to do this look, because I've recorded it before, I just added glitter. Yeah, so bye.